When was the last time you played something that you felt was truly phenomenal? A game you felt was worth every last penny you spent on it and that you genuinely can't think of any way you could possibly improve due to how good it is. To me, that game is Hades. I genuinely can't think of any way to improve this game. As it is perfect, at least in my opinion. But if for whatever reason I was forced to pick one game to play for the rest of my life, I'd probably pick the absolute best one. If I had to choose that, I would have to go with quintessential quintuplet Summer Memories, no contest. But if I did have to choose a second place, despite what you may think if you know my channel, which you should, please, I wouldn't choose a Souls-like. I would choose either Hades, Deep Rock Galactic or Minecraft. Three very different games from slightly different genres, but they are all, in a way, roguelites, now that I think of it. And I mean, if I'm really going to play something forever, a game with high replayability is probably the best option. But that didn't really cross my mind when I was making this decision. There's another common factor between those three games that actually made me choose them. Let me try to explain. The three titles I mentioned, plus many others, are games where the player's fun comes first and monetization comes second. And I don't think I'm saying anything too controversial when I believe that this should be the norm. When I sit down in my chair after a long and arduous day of marinating in my bed, I typically go for single-player games, and I do that for two reasons. First one is that multiplayers typically require competency, and that's something that I absolutely cannot spare. I don't like the feeling of disappointing my teammates. But the second reason is that I typically prefer something that doesn't demand that much focus because I also want to spare a bit of attention to the things going on my other two monitors. You know, the ADHD strat of consuming as much content as possible at the same time to minimize the chances of having a thought. But I would be lying if I said that I don't feel the need to scratch the multiplayer itch every now and then. And recently, due to the abundance of funk montages appearing in my YouTube shorts, I decided to give Call of Duty a try again. Just a little warning, I apologize for the absolutely putrid gameplay you are about to see. Shipment is the only thing that makes me feel alive anymore. Logging into Modern Warfare 2 after having my last COD experience be Black Ops 3 was a fucking wild experience. There were microtransactions back then, but it was really shocking to me when the first time I ever logged into this full-price game, before any menus or any option to play, the first thing you see are advertisements. Buy the Battle Pass, buy the new skin, did you know Homelander is in the game? You can't get him anymore because he's limited. The battle pacification of AAA games and its consequences have been a disaster for modern gaming. It feels like almost every single big title is either going to be a huge map where you gradually unlock by climbing to high places, or an active service multiplayer PvP with battle passes and battle royale elements. Every game plays the same, but I'm not complaining about that. Fuck, I played the exact same game with a reskin since 2018. My problem is that in Modern Warfare and others, most of the effort went into advertisement and monetizing the game instead of actually making it fun. It's not about making the graphics more realistic. I don't care if I can see every damn last spore on Price's face. I only have eyes for Ghost. I care about having a good gaming experience when I decide to play a video game. The fun factor should come first, and the monetization should always come second. Now, Modern Warfare 2 was good. I had a good time. The campaign was exceptional and the multiplayer is really solid. I like it, especially when my KD is positive. But there are so many little things that just take away from the experience. Like, so many weapons and attachments that are locked behind some of the most ridiculous progression systems I have ever seen. Want this scope for your sniper rifle? Yeah, sure, just level this completely unrelated weapon to level 14. But wait, you can't do that because that weapon is locked behind the progression of some other weapon. Or better yet, a completely different fucking game mode. It feels like an artificial way to inflate the amount of content in the game, and I would excuse that if it wasn't for everything else. For example, every time you finish a match, the first thing they show you is your progression in the Battle Pass. Look at all these cool skins. Do you have enough points for them? It's yours, my friend, as long as you buy the Battle Pass. I have seen gacha games that are less aggressive with their monetization than the full-price Modern Warfare 2 is. But you know what? I can still excuse all of that if the majority of the revenue that is being made is being reinvested into the game itself. But if you've played Modern Warfare 3's campaign, you know that that's the furthest thing from the truth. Recycling the maps from Warzone into the campaign is just the last straw for me. Call of Duty's objective is no longer to make a game as enjoyable as possible, but rather the maximization of sales and playtime. It stopped being a first-person shooter and became an online store with shooter elements. And mind you that to even get to play this, you already need to put down $70. It's so hard to believe that a campaign this exceptional is attached to the same game that does all this shit. And I mean, I'll keep playing it because, as I said, the multiplayer is solid, but I don't feel good about it, especially when I'm reminded of all the shit that comes with it. At the end of every match, I get to see weapons and characters that I need to pay to get in the game that I already paid to play in the first place. And naturally, Call of Duty isn't the only perpetrator of this. So many other games do the exact same things to various degrees of intensity. And honestly, I can't be bothered to play them for too long, especially when they're so packed with direct and uncreative orders for you to empty your wallet. At least gacha games are more subtle about it, as they make you like the characters you're paying for through stories and events. But all these mainstream titles just shove microtransactions in every part of the menu. And even if I were to buy them, odds are that I'll keep playing not necessarily because I'm having fun, but rather from a sense of obligation. I already spent money on the game, might as well play it, right? I tend to shy away from the popular titles precisely for that reason. At the very least, Genshin and Arknights are less on the nose with their monetization. But this grown-ass full-price game shows you adverts the moment you log in. And again, I'm not against monetization as a whole, I'm against having an online shop disguised as a game. It wasn't the only reason why I kept away from mainstream games for a couple of years, but I did get to see a few snapshots of how it was back then and how ridiculous it is now. This is, apparently, the norm, and coming from games that I mentioned in the beginning, it's shocking to see just how aggressive the monetization has become. And this is coming from a motherfucker who's been playing gacha for the past 2 years. But enough about that, because, like it or not, it's not like I'm saying anything new here. Let's take a look back at the games I mentioned in the beginning. Beyond having unlimited replayability sort of built into them, they are also games that were originally made by small teams, emphasis on originally, and whose focus was and still is the continuous making of the most fun experience possible. Now, whether or not Minecraft is a 10 out of 10 is debatable. Personally, I think it is, but your opinion may be different. I just put it here to show that even a game from a large corporation can be done well and can be lucrative without excessive monetization. But if you don't agree, that's okay. For that reason, we're just going to put him right in the corner and take the spotlight to the other games. Hades and Deep Rock Galactic are both very well acclaimed by pretty much anyone who plays them, but since they're both roguelites, I'll throw 2 more into the mix: Hollow Knight and Stray. What these games have in common is that they were made by small companies who have the creation of fun experiences as their focus. In these titles, monetization, if it exists, it's kept to a minimum. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, Deep Rock Galactic does have a battle pass, but instead of showing up every time you finish a mission, the only way I know to access it is through the main hub by walking all the way to this little terminal over here. And do you know what you get as a reward for purchasing the battle pass? Nothing, because you can't purchase the battle pass, you can only unlock shit by playing. The only things that you can actually buy in the game are all cosmetic items. And guess what? I bought them. Not because the game kept pestering me to do so, but because I was having so much fun playing it that I genuinely wanted to support the developers. And same goes for the others. Due to their single-player nature, they won't have anything remotely similar to a purchasable battle pass. And though that's not enough to deter monetization in some games, thankfully it wasn't the case for them either. Every single one of them is acclaimed either due to their polish, creativity, gameplay, or world building, and often all at the same time. You can see and feel all the passion that was put into making every little detail as enjoyable as possible. And do you know what pains me? In Modern Warfare 2, as well as many other AAA titles, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of passionate game developers that are trying to painstakingly nail every detail on the weapons, the character art, and the map design. Those devs work like motherfuckers to meet quotas demanded by executives whose experience with video games is limited to buying their kid a PlayStation or those shitty mobile games you see on ads every now and then. These people aren't interested in making games, they are interested in making bank, and unfortunately, they found a very optimal way of doing that, through aggressive monetization and battle passes. This model is very unlikely to change, on the contrary. The only games who can actually pull off this type of monetization are already very well established. Call of Duty, Overwatch, Fortnite, etc. These are titans of modern gaming with tens, maybe millions of people playing them. They are very unlikely to fall due to their size, and for that reason, they found themselves at the liberty to be so intensive with their monetization. If we sum the all-time peak players of all the 4 indie games that I mentioned, it's less than a third of Modern Warfare's all-time peak, and just a little over 50% over its average daily peak. It is sad, but it is to be expected. They are indie games by indie devs, and like it or not, it's hard to make your game shine amongst all others. There are a lot of gems hidden in the depths of Steam that simply haven't found their way to the spotlight yet. That's not to say all indie games are good and all AAA games are bad. There are very good examples of the opposite in both cases. And of course, it's okay if you like games that have an aggressive monetization model. I still like Modern Warfare 2 and I'll keep playing it for a little bit because even if it crushes my soul, it's still something that I can turn off my brain to. However, if I actually want to experience peak gaming, I'll go play something else.